All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 92 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm with my main man, Bill at Super Duper Flex. Bill, man, how you doing? It feels a lot longer than a week since the last time we talked, but I'm excited to be back. I just want to shout you out. You killed it as the host with the most last week. You had Drew on as well. You had Sonny. You guys were cracking me up when it was Sonny talking about the fact that I'm never on when he's on the timeline. So it always seems like he comes in to replace me and does a damn good job out of it too. So you guys killed it. But how you doing, man?
Yeah, man, doing good. Excited. We're starting to get a lot more news, all that fun stuff. So it's just, looking forward to football season starting again. It's been a long off season. It just feels so long. So that's exciting. Excited to chat tonight with our guest, and let's do this.
Yeah. So Bill talking about our guest. He's in here. He had some technical difficulties, but this is a man that makes it work. He says, "What? The laptop's not working. I'm gonna hop on the phone. Who cares? Let's get it done." We got Jake Estes at Dynasty_Jake. Jake, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How you fellas doing?
Dude, we're doing good. We're happy. We're back together. We got a good guest, and dude, let's get this rolling. So let's hit the news. First one, Deshawn is back at practice. Deshawn Watson, he's still in Houston. He is still a Texan. All right, what's going to happen with this? I mean, there was a trade that was like almost done, and then other people are saying the trade ain't even close to being done. What's going to go on? Bill, tell me, what are we doing with Deshawn here? Are we, what are we doing?
Nah, yeah, I'm really hesitant to do anything, aggressive with Deshaun right now, like in redraft, let's say. He's probably somebody I'm gonna, if he falls far enough, he might be somebody I'd be considering grabbing. But I don't trust any news in regards to anything with him. There's so much unknown that just little blurbs aren't gonna move anything for me. So Dynasty, if you're looking for a quarterback, he's not, and you're not competing this year, you should be going after him. I think, it's not going to be suspended for life, I don't think, unless he's going to prison, which everything's civil. So, I think that the news isn't going to sway me one way or the other. So I'm kind of in a holding pattern for now.
So, Jake, do you have a feeling of where he might end up, or is there a spot you really hope he ends up?
So Deshaun's, it's such a weird situation, because obviously we have these civil lawsuits, and it's everybody knows how talented he is, but this also seems like a great time for the NFL to be like, hey, you know what, we need to set an example. We have to draw the line somewhere, right? Well, I think this would probably be the instance in which that's done. I don't want to get political, but it's basically the NFL. They didn't ban Kaepernick, but it was almost amongst owners that they decided we're not giving this guy a job. And I feel if that happened because of that political stance, why not for this, And I don't think it's going to happen because he's that much more talented, and everybody sees that. It's sad. I wish that was the case. If he actually did these allegations, I wish he was banned. That's really how I feel and think. What I think will happen, I don't think he'll get banned. I think he's going to get at least a 1-year ban. And I don't know how. So, so say he gets a 1-year ban. To me, that's almost a reason for him to come play now. Hey, let me get this out of the way. So I'm going to tell the Texans. And then I would think the league would, at that point, put him on the commissioner's exempt list, right? And so at that point, I don't know if he just stays on the exempt list or if that's part of his ban. But I think he knows that he's in trouble. He should just get it out of the way. But so say he gets banned for a year, and if he sits out this year, we're looking at possibly 2 years, And so it's just such a weird situation. And redraft, I don't want any part of him. I don't think he's playing this year. In Dynasty, I was telling everybody a while ago that I'm trying to get any type of value I can. I think that I said that I would take a second, but I don't think I'm there now just because we see the situation developing. I think I'd have to go with you, Bill. I think you got to hold in Dynasty because no one's going to pay what he's worth if he plays. And if you sell him, you're not going to get anything worthwhile. If you do get something worthwhile, I think you sell because it's just such a risky case that I would sell.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I only have Watson in one of my dynasty leagues. So not during the rookie draft, but before rookie draft, I pretty much went to the guys with the top 3 picks and said, give me your first, I'll give you Watson. And the guy at 101 said, man, I think I might regret this, but I'm going to hold my 101. So, that just shows that if you couldn't get it done back then, when I think there was a lot more optimism, because there was still a lot more time before the season actually started. Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, you can't really do much with them. Hold them, unless somebody, hears a report or just has a feeling that he's going to be fine and wants to give you a pretty good offer for him. Because at this point, what's a second round pick going to do you if Deshawn Watson does come back? Maybe he misses 8 games this year, and that's it. That's the end of the story. Well, you just sold Deshaun Watson because he missed 8 games for a second round pick, and odds are that second round pick ain't going to be anything close to Deshaun Watson. So,
yeah, I think that it's just like, the stars are always getting a pass, or they're just it's just how the NFL has worked forever. If you're good, you're going to get a chance time and time again. The NFL isn't really, if you're negative to the shield, then, or you're causing any sort of issue, even though or they view it as a detriment to the shield, they're going to give you as hard a time as possible. But, there's a ton of hypocrisy. It's all about the dollar. And to have one of their mega stars completely banned, I have a hard time believing that the NFL will do that, even if they should. So that's why I'm not I wouldn't move him right now if I have him. It's just, I think there's a lot more opportunity to lose on that deal than if you just hold.
Yeah, and I'm with you guys in redraft. I mean, maybe if he's still hanging around in the 12th or 13th round and you want him as a second quarterback, all right, yeah, shoot for it, because there's probably not much in those rounds that you're super excited for. But for the most part, I mean, I'm probably not going to worry about it in the redraft setting. Oh, that was weird. All right, so let's go to the next news little blurb we have here. Saquon Barkley off the PUP list. He's off. We were worried about him possibly missing time. He may still miss time, but does this news make you feel any better about Saquon at all? Jake, why don't we start with you? Do you feel better about Saquon now that he's off that PUP?
Absolutely. So I love Saquon. He's probably my favorite running back in the league, at least from just like a talent standpoint. Like I know there's a lot of guys just talented, but I love his style of running. He can truck guys. He can make people miss on a dime. So I love watching Saquon run. But obviously after a knee injury, like that, that's terrifying. So the fact that they said, hey, let's give him extra time, and the fact that he's beating that time, that says a lot to me. And I don't want to get like too far into the weeds, but modern medicine is insane, and the drugs that these guys have access to is stuff that most humans don't know exist. So I mean, yeah, with modern medicine and the fact that they're saying, hey, he's ready, that's a huge sign to me. I was approaching it cautiously. I actually traded him in one league, but yeah, I've had him on the pup list in another, and immediately I'm ready to go with him.
Bill, what about you? You feeling better about Saquon with this news?
I didn't expect like these pup things like early in the preseason don't scare me a lot. Like it's just part of, a lot of times they just do that with their star players. I understand he's coming back from an injury, so there's a little bit more concern as to like, is it lingering, that sort of thing? Will it affect him? So this is definitely a positive sign for him because he is coming back from an injury. But, like Jake said, medicine, plus you're adding that Saquon's a superhuman. Like, these elite athletes just heal differently. I think it's just crazy. Every one of these like star, like crazy, guys who are just, physical specimens, they'll just like get better so many more weeks early than like a typical NFL player, like Saquon, he's working out constantly, his body is where he wants it to be. It's just, so I think he just heals that way. And like Jay said, that modern medicine's crazy. So, I'm feeling better for the teams that I do have him, but it may end up being where he misses a few weeks to start anyway. And like, I'm okay with that. I think if anybody that has Saquon, if they get him in the first 3 weeks, I think they're going to be really happy. I think that, I don't know. I wasn't freaking out too much about it. And so this is promising news though, that, it's a little, maybe I don't have to do something to add depth to my dynasty team if I have Saquon. That I'm a little less nervous about my depth, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I still think that Saquon is going to miss maybe the first 1, 2, 3 weeks of the season. But that's kind of what we thought before when he got put on the preseason pup, which is really just a list of, you go on when you want, come off when you want. It's not like the regular season list where you are going to miss at least 6 weeks, So I still think, especially if the Giants are smart about this, they're not putting Saquon out there until he is 100% and he is ready to go. Because, you took this guy with the number 2 pick, and you can argue if that was smart or not. I'm not here to argue that. But you invested a ton of draft capital into him, and he's getting ready to come up on the 5th-year option. And if you do what I think they're going to do and give him the big extension, you want to make sure he's there for all of it and he's doing what he has the ability to do. So missing 3 weeks in the beginning of one season is better than rushing out too early and missing another season because you didn't play this game smart. But Bill, you threw it up there for a second. Koenig52 had a good one here. Where would you guys draft Saquon then? So that's a really good question. So let's do it in Superflex Dynasty first, and then we'll hit it from redraft too. So Bill, where do you want to draft Saquon?
I honestly think he's probably in the same place for both. He's probably a little later in Dynasty. I would say he's probably in that early to mid second.
Okay.
In Dynasty.
Okay.
And Scott Fishbowl, I drafted him at the end of the first. I would say I think it's a value there. Like, I think people are totally discounting him there. Because like really what's the difference between him and like Dalvin Cook when all's said and done, right? Like, you're getting a discount. So I would personally lump him in with like those other top, like the 2 to 6 running backs. Like, I think he's in that grouping. He's probably my number 2 running back. So, I mean, maybe I'm a little higher on him. So where would I draft him? I would be drafting him pretty early. Superflex, I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks in there, though. So I think that there's probably 7 quarterbacks in the first round, plus CMC and him, and then the tight ends. So, I mean, I think I'm right back to like towards the end of the first in Superflex.
So DLF Superflex ADP, Saquon is going at 12.25. So pretty much 12. He's going with that last pick in your 12-team first round. So I think you nailed it there. I think he gets drafted. I think he should be around the same place in redraft, maybe a little bit higher, especially if you're doing the 1 QB thing. But I think that late, that mid to late first round, I mean, some people, I mean, if I'm just looking at the Dynasty ADP here, but CMC.
I'm way earlier in 1 QB. I'm like redraft. I'm taking him top 6 or 7 at worst.
So in Dynasty, he is RB3. So the only 2 that are ahead of him are obviously CMC. And since this is July, Jonathan Taylor is still in front of him. I'm sure in August that's going to go down with the Quentin Nelson news, unless he does come back and play week 1 and then nothing's going to change. But so I think people are kind of where you are on it, that he is one of the elite. And, this is obviously, before he got taken off the PUP. So even on that preseason PUP, they weren't worried about it. Jake, what about you? Where would you draft him?
For Superflex Dynasty, I would say probably early second. Now, if the knee thing never popped up, I'd be right there in the same spot as Bill. But I'd probably give him. I'd probably take not Dalvin in Dynasty, but definitely Jonathan Taylor CMC first. And hell, I don't know, maybe not, because I don't know who else I would take. I like Swift a lot this year. I like Gibson a lot this year, but I don't think I could take him in front. Dalvin's a stud, but he's 26. So it's like, yeah, probably Saquon right there after JT and who am I missing? JT
CMC.
and thank you. There we go. CMC, the obvious one. So yeah, probably after those 2, I might grab another quarterback and just push him off a couple spots from where I would normally draft them, just because there might be that 2 or 3 weeks that you're not getting points from. Also, are you guys getting feedback? Is that just me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I might be, Josh, you might want to try unplugging and plugging your mic back in.
All right.
I thought it was
It's still there.
Are you guys hearing it from me or whenever you talk, Josh?
I'm hearing it the whole time. So I'll try to work through it. And now it's off. But both of you are muted.
Oh, can you
There
hear
we
it
go.
now?
No.
How about now? Okay.
Yeah, I've just been muting when I'm not talking, but I don't hear it when I'm talking. I just hear it when Josh is talking.
Oh, that's so weird.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll get through it. It's all right.
We'll work through it.
No worries. Just checking.
So I'm with, I think I'm kind of with Bill, late first in Superflex Dynasty. And then in redraft, I might take Dalvin in front of him and CMC. But Dalvin, you can convince me very easily Saquon over Dalvin. That's kind of a coin flip. And there's nobody else. It's those 2, and that's it in redraft. And like I said, you could probably easily convince me to go Saquon ahead of Dalvin at that RB2. So
I was having this conversation with one of my employees today about redraft, and I think there's 5 running backs after CMC that could all be number 2 almost, like just depending on whoever, somebody's small bias. But I would almost rather be at like 106 than 102 this year, just because I'm okay taking the last guy in that tier. Like, I mean, is there anybody, like if I rattle off JT, Saquon, Kamara, if you're in like a 0.5, Derrick Henry and Zeke, like, is there really that much between any of those guys? I mean, I think I like Kamara. I like Dalvin a little bit better than probably some, but Barkley's right there with those guys. And so, like, do you guys agree that there's kind of like that? I mean, if you want to go PPR and take out Derrick Henry, I'm totally cool with that. But, like, I mean, it feels like there's like a pretty big tier right there.
So I would actually, the only person that I don't think belongs in that group is Zeke. After last year, I know he didn't play with his line and he didn't play with Dak, but Tony Pollard looked like the better back. Maybe it was just an off year. So that's the only guy that I'm hesitant on that you listed there. Other than that, I would take any of those guys right there in that same range. Zeke would definitely be on the outer skirts of that one for me.
Yeah, and it's funny because, Bill, I think you're right. I think you can make an argument for any of those five guys. I think I would put Kamara at the very end of that just because of all of the kind of insecurity about that situation. We don't know who the quarterback is going to be. Michael Thomas is going to miss at least 6 weeks probably. He's probably going to get put on the pup, and he's already mouthing off about the team. He's not happy. Like, there's just a lot going on there. And I know a lot of us, especially in the dynasty world, we have high hopes for Adam Troutman, but we don't know who he is. We don't know if he's that guy or if he's just another one of the long line of tight ends that have come through New Orleans since Jimmy Graham. Like, so he might be the only weapon. And in that case, I mean that could seriously be bad news for him. But unlike Jake, I think I am high on Zeke this year. I mean, we have to remember before the Dak injury, Zeke was RB3 in fantasy. So listen, nobody. Saquon's not going to look good with Garrett Gilbert and Ben DiNucci and the corpse of Andy Dalton. Nobody is. I mean, and that offensive line. I mean, they were playing four stringers at one point. It was a mash unit. Zeke took a couple games off this year, and honestly, I think he was a little bit banged up. But I also think he was like, "Why the hell am I getting hit?" And
I think that's very much part of
this crappy team. And
he's
listen,
like, bump this.
I'm not advocating that mentality, but I'm just saying if you kind of look at what was going on and kind of look at his body language, it seemed more like, hey, I am hurting a little bit. Now, if Dak was out here and we were rolling, maybe I tough through it. But Ben DiNucci ain't doing it for me. I'm gonna sit right here. I'm gonna get myself healthy. And honestly, I know preseason pictures and videos they have sunk many a good dynasty player, but he does look like he's in better shape. I'm not gonna say he's more explosive and he's gonna do all this stuff. But you can tell he's in better shape, which I think is good news for him.
The beauty is, like, even if you're in Jake's shoes where he doesn't want to take Zeke, Zeke's gonna get the what's the show there? Hard Knocks bump anyway, so he'll probably get picked earlier than he's supposed to just because of that. So beware of that this year, right? We always have that Hard Knocks bump. Wait
until episode 2 or episode 3 where Simi Fioco is like the man and he's making one-handed catches and stuff. Boy, you're gonna be able to trade that dude for a second in some of your leagues, because I saw Simi Fioco on Hard Knocks and he was doing all this stuff and he runs hard. I'd be like, yeah, I'll trade him to you for a second. and just recoup on that. But yeah, no, I agree with you, man. That Hard Knocks bump, man, is like, how many players have been traded for with there was the one guy from when the Raiders were on the 1 year, the one wide receiver who everybody wanted him. I can't even remember the guy's name now, but he was like hot for like a month and a half. And man, I traded that guy in so many places, and that guy never did anything. I had such a good time with that. But no, I agree with you. Let's hit the last bit of news though, real quick. So it looks like Carson Wentz and Quentin Nelson, we've talked about them a couple times already. They're already showing up to practice, no boots on. The whispers in the wind is that Carson Wentz could be starting week 1. Is this hype, or is this the real deal? What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I know they don't want to roll with Easton or Ellinger. It's funny. I've been telling everybody, I'm like, this is how you know we're peak off season. I'm sitting here arguing with people about who's better between Ellinger and Easton, and I'm like, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter which one's better, because you're choosing between two turds, and it's still a turd. Neither's gonna do anything. So at the end of the day, I really hope Carson's back. I'm a Titans fan, but I don't want to win the division because Carson's not playing. So I hope he's back. I hope they're healthy. And I'm kind of excited to see Carson back in an offense, because when he was with Reich, that was his best career years. So they're relinked. A lot of people are forgetting that and just think that basically because last year, well, one, he had a worse offensive line. And now he's relinked with the coach that he's had the best success under. So I'm excited to see Carson this year. I don't think that wide receiver core is anything to be scared of, but he's definitely a step up from Phillip Rivers, in my opinion. Phillip Rivers at that point in his career anyways. So yeah, I mean, I think it's, I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't know. I hope he's ready for week 1, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I have any type of information on that. It goes back to modern medicine. I think modern medicine and the drugs these guys have access to would blow most people's mind. But body's still a body, and you have to heal. So I have no idea.
What about you, Bill?
I think it could go two different ways, right? Like, okay, they're telling the truth, maybe, but then at the same time, it's like, both of those guys come out one day after the next, and they're having physical ailments, and media just goes crazy with these stories. So could it be that the coaching staff and everybody just doesn't want to deal with answering that question every day? And they're just like, let's bring these guys out. Like, let's kind of make it a positive story instead of them just constantly getting barraged with questions on the timetable for these two players during, preseason when they want to focus on other things. So, I could see it going either way. I mean, I don't put it past anybody to do anything to just save themselves some headaches. So, I would be surprised if, Wentz starts week 1 personally. Like, I don't expect him to. I mean, when you give a timetable of 5 to 12 weeks, I mean, that's a huge, range. And for it to be, the bottom, then why did they come out and give that just crazy number in the first place? I don't know. It just seems like it'd be pretty, it'd just be pretty surprising to me.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit of, maybe a little gamesmanship by the Colts here. Both of those guys, and honestly, I'm going to say Quentin Nelson more than Carson Wentz, but both of those guys are super important to the long-term future of this franchise. And it doesn't make sense from a long-term view to rush these guys back just to have them in there for game 1. I think they're going to wait till both guys are 100%. Before they put them in, because they don't need either one of those guys to come back early, come back week 1. The foot's not fully healed. Someone steps on it. They step the wrong way, and now they're out for the rest of the season. And I'm not a doctor, so I don't even know if any of what I just said is actually physically possible, but I have a feeling that there's probably a scenario where it is. And why would the Colts risk the long-term future of either one of these guys just to get them in there week 1? I don't think it makes a lot of sense. Now, if one or both of those guys are 100% and they deem them to be 100% by week one, yeah, they're both going to start. They're both going to be in there. But I think the Colts have proven over the last few years they're a good organization, they're a smart organization, and they're going to do, I think they're going to do what's best not only for the player but for themselves in the long term. So, all right, man, with the news, man, I love having news that we can talk about. But obviously, this is what we're here for. This is the main event. This is what we saw on the timeline. So this one is actually a two-parter. I found the first tweet and then I found the second tweet, and I go, man, this is really kind of what's going on in Twitter about this guy. So let's read them both. I'm going to read them both off here. The first one is from Zara Kantsabedian at ZKantsFF. I'm sorry, I messed up your name. I know I did. Are we sure that Myles Gaskin's ADP is justified? What's to stop Flores from incorporating Malcolm Brown and Salvon Ahmed? I've seen a declarative statement from the Dolphins claiming Gaskin as a 15 to 20 touch per game back type of running back. So you got the "Are we sure about Myles Gaskin" tweet. And then we'll go right here to Adam Coughler at Adam Coughler. Myles Gaskin had 19 plus touches in 6 of 10 games in 2020. Played over 70% of snaps in 5 of those 6 games. In those 5 games, he averaged 18.6 rush attempts and 4.4 targets per game. Are we really worried about UDFA Salvon Ahmed challenging Gaskin for touches? So I have a very declarative opinion, but before I get into that, I want to hear what you guys have to say. So, Bill, are you a yay or a nay on Myles Gaskin for 2021?
What's his ADP? Just out of curiosity. Is this something like I don't have him anywhere? Like I cut him after his rookie season, like when I had to make cuts during the off season. I mean, I like he's somebody I don't mind having, and the Dolphins have shown that they're willing to just give somebody most of the touches, and so that's why I'm kind of like I think I lean Myles Gaskin. I mean, the point about UDFA Salvon Ahmed. Well, sorry, but Myles Gaskin was a 7th rounder, so it's not like there's some like material difference between the two. I think that but I do lean Gaskin. I think that he's somebody that I don't mind having. I put him in that Mike Davis kind of tier. I'm not expecting more than one season out of him. Like, I mean, maybe he grabs the bull by the horns and he's very successful and he ends up becoming their back. But I mean, somebody in the 7th, with a 7th round draft pedigree is pretty likely going to get replaced at some point. Fortunate for him, there's really not a lot of competition. And if they stick with what they did last year and gave a lot of touches to one back, I'm cool with Gaskin. And who cares? Even if they give some touches to Ahmed and Malcolm Brown, I don't necessarily think that they're going to be 50-50 splits with him. So I still think he's going to be a guy that I would be happy getting 50% of the touches with Miami.
So you asked about ADP. Koenig52 in the chat says low 60s on Underdog, which is best ball. Fantasy Pros, this is 1 QB redraft, 48, but he's going as running back 23. And then Superflex DLF ADP for July has him at 88.25 running back 25. So he looks like he's in that very low end running back too, at least for ADP. I'll get him. Why not?
At that price, I'm totally down.
And we saw last year, it's pretty much the same cast of characters. Yes, Malcolm Brown is new, but do we really think that Malcolm Brown is stealing a ton of touches from Myles Gaskin? Probably not. And we saw when he was healthy, they used him. So I expect them to do more of the same. that could be a deadly assumption. But until they show me something different, I mean, for 2021, let's get on the Myles Gaskin train. He'll be, I think, exactly where ADP says he's going to be in that that low end RB2. What do you think, Jake?
So I really wish I wasn't using my phone as a camera so I could look up some notes because I got some pretty interesting stuff on this one. So a guy that you're not mentioning at all is rookie Jared Dokes. And Jared Dokes is a guy out of Cincinnati. He's a big, powerful back. I really like his tape. I do all these rookie evaluations every year. I can't remember where he scored. I want to say it was like 10th or 11th on my running backs, which isn't great. But at the end of the day, we're talking about draft capital. He's got the same draft capital as all these guys. He's a big boy. I can't remember what his yards per carry is, but I'm pretty sure it was significant. And when I watched him play, he was a physical guy who ran hard and looked like he wanted it. You know, the guy who gets the ball and he's trying to get that extra yard no matter what. That's what I saw in Jared Dokes. And I guess I say that to say that I really want no part of that offense, or not offense. I want no part of that backfield because we've got Myles Gaskin did that last year, but again, they just drafted a guy with the same draft capital who could steal all those goal line touches. He's a big, powerful back. Now I don't know how much Myles Gaskin weighs, but I'm fairly certain Jared Dokes is a bigger back, and I don't think they drafted him to not utilize him or his skill set. So I really don't want any part of that backfield unless Gaskin falls pretty far past ADP. I'm not touching him. I'm more of a value guy. If he's my running back 3, I'm comfortable, but I don't want him as my RB2.
I can buy that.
Yeah.
So
So
I wouldn't want him as my RB2 either, to be honest with you. So
yeah, but it looks like I guess it all depends on how you're drafting your team. I mean, even in one QB, he's going at 48. I think I said, or 49. So if you are a heavy running back drafter, he might be your RB3, or even your RB4 if you go real running back heavy. So, in those situations, I agree with you. I mean, I'm not thrilled if he's my RB2, but I mean, I could be in a lot worse spots, than Myles Gaskin as my RB2. So I'm not. It's not what I hope for, but I'm also not going to be heartbroken if I ended up in a draft like that. So yeah, I got Gaskin here at 5'9", 205. So he's definitely not a heavy back by any definition. I don't have Dokes stats in front of me, but yeah, so obviously, like
I got a wild stat.
Dokes got 4.7 yards per carry senior season.
I thought it was in the 6th range. But here's a super interesting stat that I'd love to throw out. So I looked at the top 25 running backs the past 2 years, okay? And I think it gave me, or the top 20 the last 2 years, and it gave me 25 because there's overlap. Of those 25 guys, the only guys who made that list that weighed under, I think it was 205, were guys that were pass catchers. And Gaskin's not an elite pass catcher. It was like guys like Eckler. I think James White was on there. He might be borderline. J.D. McKissick, Naeem Hines. So it's like when you see those smaller backs, they have to be elite pass catching backs to be top fantasy assets. So, and I guess that just goes to me, like when you see a guy like that and you draft Jared Dokes, I think Jared Dokes is 230. I see a guy who they're wanting to give goal line touches too. And so that's another reason that pushes me away. Same draft capital, so why not?
I actually like that stat that you brought up because one of the tweets, I think it was Adam's tweet, mentioned that he had 4.4 catches last year in those games, but the Dolphins made a big push to increase their pass catching weapons. I mean, they drafted Waddle. They signed Will Fuller from free agency. So they definitely made a big push to get more pass catching weapons in there. So I'll be curious to see what his, even what his targets per game end up being, because was Myles Gaskin targeted because they really liked what he did in the passing game, or was he targeted because the number one was Mike Gesicki and the number two was, Devontae Parker, I guess? Like, there's definitely upgrades in the pass catching room there. So yeah, that I like that stat because I'll be very curious to see what that ends up being for Gaskin. And Koenig 52 says, yeah, but all their pass catchers are hurt, which unfortunately at the moment it does seem that both Waddle and Fuller are dealing with some injuries. Hopefully by week 2, because Will Fuller won't play in week 1, they're back to full health, and we can really see, because I think that might actually be a low key offense you want to watch. So cool. So we got a little Myles Gaskin debate in there, and I loved it because I wanted to talk about him, and then I saw we had 2 people, and trust me, I think Myles Gaskin is one of those guys that is very polarizing. You either like him for 2021 or you are completely out, kind of like Mike Davis. But hey, we give you both sides of the coin and we let you make your decision. We get guys like Jake to just throw bomb stats, and then, hey, man, it's up to you. What do you see? What are you looking at? And make those decisions for yourself. So this one, I love this question because we put out every week, hey, if you got questions, put them on. We'll get them on the show. And Jake retweeted it, and Tariq M at TRock5220 said, hey, tanks or cutoffs? Do you have a certain shirt you wear when you know you're going to lift big that day, or you just lift big every day? Mine is a cutoff Tiger shirt. Now, first of all, Tariq, that's baller status right there. That they need to give you a medal for the cutoff Tiger, because that says you got confidence and you do big work. So Tariq, I like it. But Koenig 52 or crop tops. Listen, I don't have the new Ezekiel Elliott physique, so I keep away from crop tops because he's got a 6-pack and I got a keg. So I keep the crop tops to a minimum. But this leads us into a Trey Sermon discussion we're going to have, and a tweet that you put out, Jake. But before we get into Trey, I'll give you a little background about kind of it started as a conversation, and now it's kind of the Fantasy Timeline's inside joke about Trey Sermon. So a few months ago during rookie draft season, one of our guests, Linda Lyons at Lindellians, was on the show, and she put out a tweet that said, if you're taking Trey Sermon in the first round, you're making a mistake. And I was with her 100%. I said, Trey Sermon in the first, that's a little too rich. And then Bill and I, as we're apt to do, we start going back and forth about the pros and the cons of Trey Sermon. And Bill says no, but Bill said there had to be some pros to Trey Sermon.
This is revisionist history. I can tell the story in 1 second. Josh says that he's like, totally like anti first round for Sermon, and I said watch him get 1,300 yards this season. That's all I said. And then Josh said I'll wear insert some embarrassing shirt. If that happens. So now he says I love Trey Sermon because I was making a joke about him being anti Trey Sermon. So that's it.
So Jake, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. I am a Dallas Cowboys fan. So I told him if Trey Sermon in the year 2021 of our Lord got 1,300 yards, that I would wear a female Philadelphia Eagles tank top on an episode of the Fantasy Timeline.
I will be off that week.
Because I listen. You can like Trey Sermon as much as you want. And hey, people like Trey Sermon is actually starting to get a lot of buzz now. A lot of people are really in on him. 1,300 yards is a lot of yards. And unless defenses just lay down for the Sermon, it ain't gonna happen. 1,300 is a lot. But Jake, I do want to throw your tweet up here because you talk about this, and this is what we're here for. We're here so that smarter people than us can discuss topics. So this is from Jake Estes at Dynasty_Jake. Is the San Francisco 49ers backfield a backfield to avoid? Or is this a case of recency bias? Kyle Shanahan, the right way, has been a head coach or offensive coordinator every year since 2008. And you dive into the numbers, and you bring up some blasts from the past. People that I have forgotten, Roy Halou, like guys that I have, and I loved it because I read the whole thing, and it's way too long to read. I'm going to put a link to that tweet if you're kind of wondering about all this, because Jake, I think deep dive is even offensive to say because it's deeper than that. He really gets into it and tells you what's going on. So, Jake, maybe pull out some of the stats you like the most about this backfield and why you are on the sermon train.
I've got a lot, man. So Sermon was one of my pre-draft favorite running backs. So before I get into any type of analytical data, which is really big with me, that's kind of like how I gained popularity in the community, was just digging in data, all this fun stuff that I love. Anyways, I did that, but before I did that, I watched tape because I want to see if tape and data aligns, and when it does, to me, that's a huge thumbs up because both the data suggests he's going to be good and what I watched said he's going to be good. So when I watched Trey Sermon at Oklahoma, it looked like a different running back. When I watched him at Ohio State, he looked like a guy who had that want factor that I was kind of talking about earlier with Jared Dokes, but not to the same degree. I saw a lot of Trey Sermon and Javonte Williams and that type of physicality and want just at Ohio State. I'm not saying at Oklahoma. So I don't know if something clicked. I don't know if it was a teaching. I don't know what it was. But before the NFL draft, I told everybody, I said, Trey Sermon will be the fourth running back off the board. Everyone said no, Michael Carter and Kenneth Gainwell. I'm like, no, those guys are too small. They're not going to be 3-down backs. That's why Trey Sermon's going to go first, because you don't want that early capital on a guy who you can't use for 3 downs. So anyways, that happened, and I got really excited because he went to an offense that loves to run the ball. Well, everyone's like, well, Shanahan loves to give the ball to a committee. And I'm like, well, that's not necessarily true. So that's where I dug into the data. He had 6 times, and it's in that coaching career, 6 times he's had a running back go over 900 yards. For context, 900 yards, I believe, would be the 12th ranked rushing leader last year. That's not a scrub. 12th in yardage. Okay, so 6 times he's had guys go over 900 yards. He's not afraid to commit to one single back. Now, then everyone's like, okay, well, Raheem Mostert's not a scrub. You see what he's done. I'm like, well, he's not, but is he a product of a great scheme? Possibly. I mean, what's this, his 5th team? His first time he's finding success? To that point, he's also getting older. And one of my favorite quotes from Shanahan is, you don't trade up for running backs because it's been proven that you can get them in later rounds. That's what he said verbatim. And what does he do? He trades up to get Trey Sermon. So a guy who swears by not trading up for running backs traded up to get a guy. To me, that says a lot. And then when we get into camp, now he's getting first team carries. So I think the whole Raheem versus Trey, I think there's a lot to it. And I've kind of, sometimes you dig into data, and when you do that, you kind of disprove what you're trying to prove. But that wasn't the case. I found 6 times where he had a guy go over 900 yards. That's a bell cow. That's a guy who's getting them. And that was with a 3rd round pick, like a 6th round pick. I can't remember. It's all laid out in the tweet. Long story short, though, he scored as, ignoring film now, he scored as my 4th highest ranked running back. And that's based on metrics that are directly correlated with fantasy points. So I built this massive database for each position. I'm gonna try and keep this short. Sorry, fellas. So I built this massive database, and then I compare college metrics to fantasy points. I say, okay, this pro, for example, Adrian Peterson, what were his college metrics that led to him being successful? And is there a common theme among all the top running backs? So you actually find it's like 6 different statistical categories that actually had correlation, like extreme correlation. And it was yards per carry, draft capital, dominator rating, yards per carry, target share. Anyways, all these things. And then there's a mathematical formula. Trey Sermon scored 4th, which isn't as high as ETN. So I'm definitely I'm not saying he's an ETN. I'm not saying he's a Javonte Williams. And I'm not saying he's Najee. He's not. But he's going to a scheme that knows how to run the ball really, really well. And he's a guy that's capable of being a 3-down back. I don't think it's a competition there. I think it's going to be closer to 60-40 Sermon over Mostert in year 1. I really believe that. In redraft rankings, I have Sermon higher than Javonte just because Melvin's a stud. Raheem Mostert is not a stud. So Dynasty, I'm not saying that at all. And I'm not saying he's a better running back. But when it comes to redraft, I think Sermon's immediately starting. And I think he's a guy that and I think that's why he's becoming such a guy who's moving higher in the ADP. Everyone's following training camp, and you're not supposed to get behind training camp. But when training camp supports your theories that you've been building on, it's kind of like affirmation. So sorry for the long rant. That's my Trey Sermon rant.
No, man, don't be sorry at all because trust me, you just made Bill feel really good. He's getting excited to see me in a ladies Eagles tank top. But you did a very deep dive, and like I said, I am going to attach the link to your tweet so that people can really see. I did the opposite. I did a very shallow dive into it. So you went back to 2008 because that's when Kyle Shanahan first became an offensive coordinator. I went to 2017 because it's hard to know how much influence an offensive coordinator has in the draft room and with the general manager when free agency is coming on. Right. Obviously, your stats prove that once he picked a guy or they gave him a guy, he worked with that guy and made that guy pretty good in most situations. But I think we can all agree with the 49ers. Yeah, John Lynch is there, but I think pretty much Kyle Shanahan, he shops for his groceries. So 2017 is his first year as San Francisco 49ers head coach. And this is total yards, so this is rushing and receiving. The immortal Carlos Hyde had 1,288 yards, played in 16 games, and there were only – and this last stat is actually going to prove one of the things you said, Jake, and a common misconception about the San Francisco 49ers backfield, that they use this like massive committee. So there were only 2 running backs that year that had over 100 rushing attempts. So 2, that's it. I mean, other guys had rushing attempts, but it's not like 3 guys had 100 or 4 guys had, 90. Nothing like that. 2 guys had over 100 attempts. 2018, Matt Breida, 1,075 yards. He played in 14 games. Again, only 2 running backs. He and 1 other running back with over 100 attempts. Raheem Mostert in 2019, 952 total yards. Played in 16 games. That year they had 3 guys. Jeff Wilson was one. Can't remember who the other one was. No, I think that might have been not McKinnon. Was that the guy from the Falcons? I can't even remember his name now. Playing for the Jets. Yeah. So, and then in 2020, Jeff Wilson, 733 yards, played in 12 games. Again, only 2 other guys. So that last fact is important because Jake mentioned it. Everybody just assumes that San Francisco uses like 7 guys, and there's this big running back by committee. But it's really not. Kyle Shanahan has probably 2 guys. And a lot of those times, even though those numbers are high in games played, if you look at games started, it's a lot lower, except for the Carlos Hyde year. I think he started all 6. Yeah, he's the only running back in that time to actually start all 16 of those games. So I think the reason why the attempts get split up so much is because they're just an injured team. They seem to be injured every year. I don't know what's going on there. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to I'm not going to even attempt to guess. But they seem to just get bit by the injury bug all the time. So my thing is that yes, I do believe it's going to be a split with Mostert. But Koenig actually he mentioned this. First of all, he said Jake is spitting facts, 100%. But he said watch out for Elijah Mitchell as the third down back. Man, Elijah Mitchell, man, I kind of like him as one of those kind of late darts. But my biggest thing about Trey Sermon in the first round, and Jake, you mentioned this. You looked at the analytics and you said, hey, that is my running back 4. I almost felt like Trey Sermon was turning into CEH light, where we were moving a guy way up.
Don't do that.
This is what I mean by that. We're moving a guy way up from where we had him pre-draft because of his landing spot. Now,
I agree. I'm telling people not to do that to Sermon. That's not a good idea.
Right. And that you had him as your running back 4. So I understand you going into a rookie draft and saying, all right, 112 in my rookie draft. All right, I could take maybe Rashad Bateman or Trey Sermon. But I mean, you mentioned that Kenny Gainwell was one of these guys we were talking about. Chuba Hubbard was one of these guys we were talking about because it was kind of the big 3, and then the 4th could have been one of a bunch of guys. And my whole thought process is let's not CEH this guy into the first round because
he didn't get like 101. I mean, that's like materially different being 112. I mean, to take a running back that you want, because there's so many wide receivers everywhere.
No, but
why not reach for RB,
But let's say he was your RB6 before the draft, which probably puts him in most situations 205, 206, 207. And then you're bumping him to your RB4, which is now putting him at 110. You're moving him up almost a whole round. And I think that's where you can get bit. And it's where people got bit with CEH last year because CEH was probably, 106, 107 pre-draft. And then he went to Kansas City and it's like, Andy Reid and the Chiefs offense, he's got to be the 101. Now, you're right. It's different making that mistake at 101 and making that mistake at 110. But the whole point was just don't make the mistake at all. Now, Jake said, I looked at the analytics. He's my RB4. Hey, man, if that's your RB4, take him at 110, 111, 112 because you have the sacks.
I'm not getting that early, and I like him.
See? Jake doesn't even take him that early. So, Jake.
Yeah.
Where were you starting to grab him, Jake?
So I have a whole tier of guys that I would place above. So all right, let's pretend like it's not super flex. And this is a 1 QB situation. So I would go. The first round would be not in any particular order. I'll try and do it in order. Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams, Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts. Then I'm probably looking at personally Rashad Bateman or Terrace Marshall. I know a lot of people have Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith there. Those guys I'm not high on. So, but assuming that people are following like ESPN rankings, those are going to be like your top 10-ish. I got Terrace Marshall at the first pick and the second in a 10-team league, so the 11th pick. Got Rashad the next pick. Space, I think Michael Carter. No, maybe Michael Carter, Elijah Moore went. And then I grabbed Trey Sermon. So I think it was the 14th overall pick or 13th.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you're telling me 13th and a 10-team, 1 QB, I mean, we're probably talking about, add 5 for the quarterbacks. So
yeah, exactly.
18 in a
second.
And that's fine. You grab them at 18. I actually think you may have gotten a deal at 18.
Yeah, I don't think I saw him go that late ever.
But 10, you pay too much. I mean, listen, It's like when you go out for a car. You sit down with the guy and you go, listen, I know that's what the sticker says, but let's be real here. I don't need nice wheels. We're gonna bump this down a little bit to make it more affordable for me. And that's what I was trying to tell people in the argument. 110, you paying for all the bells and whistles that you don't need to. Bump it back to 112, 201, 202. Hey, listen, that's the price. That's where you should be getting them. Right. Don't pay too much for your car is all I'm saying.
I take value, and I do like Trey Sermon, but I'm not taking Trey Sermon. So it's like I like all these things. I built this image of Trey Sermon. I think he can be successful, but there's still risk. Like we still saw what happened last year. It's not 100% sure that Kyle Shanahan's doing everything that I say he's going to do. I think it's going to happen, whereas I think Terrace Marshall is going to be a stud. I think Rashad Bateman's going to be a stud. And I'm going to take both of those guys who are probably stepping into starting roles immediately over Trey Sermon, who I'm like, yeah, probably, but I don't know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'll, a famous reply I would say to your very deep dive is Kyle Shanahan also liked Joe Williams. I don't know if you remember the name Joe Williams from the 2018 draft, but he banged the table for him, and that dude got cut right away. So even Kyle Shanahan, who, by the way, great head coach, great offensive mind. Even the greats, they make mistakes sometimes. But no, You know what, Jake? It's funny because I thought we were really going to spar about Trey Sermon, but it almost seems like even though we got there in different ways, we're about the same where Trey Sermon should have went. So, yeah, I like that. And here you go. Here's one from Koenig. Did you guys take Sermon over Elijah Moore? I agree with Jake. Give me Rashad and Marshall over Sermon. I personally, and I think Bill agrees with me, I would not take Trey Sermon over Elijah Moore, but I love Elijah Moore, so I could be biased.
So I also love Elijah Moore. I think he actually scores number 3 in my model. So it was Terrace Marshall, then Elijah Moore, then Rashad. So I skipped Elijah there. But I try and keep context with everything. So I think Elijah Moore and Trey Sermon, at the time that I did this draft, I had them neck and neck. I liked both, could go either way. Now, after seeing camp and, comparing that to my model, I think probably I'd go Elijah, but I think Sermon's upside is really high, but his floor is lower. And so that's what makes him such a risky pick. Whereas I think Elijah's floor is pretty high, but we don't know how high his ceiling is.
Nice. So we've gone for an hour already. I want to do one more on the way out because Jake, I know you got places to be. So I want to do this last one here from David Mendelson at DMendio2. What are your 5 calls you want people to associate with you for the 2021 fantasy season? He says Russell Wilson will be QB1, CEH will be a top 12 running back, Terry McLaurin will be a top 10 wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy will be a top 24 wide receiver, and Michael Carter will be a top 24 running back. So we're not going to do 5. We're just going to do one each. If you guys know yours, you can go first, or if you guys need a second to think, I can do mine first. However you guys want to do it.
I'm going to need a second on this one.
All right, I'll go.
All right.
Of the top rookie running backs from 2020, only one will exceed expectations.
Ooh. So he's saying somebody from the pack of JT and DeAndre Swift and
Akers is already out, so that's not fair.
Akers is already out, but out of the 4, Dobbins,
those top 4,
and Gibson,
he wasn't part of the top he wasn't part of those top rookies when they were drafted. So I just mean those guys who were. I think Gibson's gonna be really good this year. So
I'm sorry, I thought you meant based off of 2020, what they did in 2020. So I
wasn't very clear.
I understand what you're saying. So there you go. Only one of those guys is going to do more than we think they're going to do. I like that, Joe, because
what's that?
Do we get a name? You just gonna leave us hanging like that?
I think it'll. Well, so okay, I think that. Yeah, I think it'll be Dobbins.
Really? Oh
Yeah.
man.
Ooh, it has gotten hot in here. Bill got some fire. Ooh.
Bill, did you see my tweet yesterday by chance?
That's why I said it.
Okay, all right. So okay.
No, like I'm a Lions fan, so I love Swift, but I just don't think they're going to use him the way that I want them to. And I don't. Yeah. So I mean, I'm a little concerned about him. I think they're going to be using Williams more than I want them to. So like I'm down on him. I don't think JT is going to do as well as we expect this year. And yeah, I mean, honestly, it's down to Dobbins. So I do think like I'm worried about his receiving. So that's a concern, but I think that the volume is where he's going to win.
I don't think you saw my tweet. It wasn't about.
I didn't see it. No.
Okay, so I want you to help me because I don't know. I'm perplexed by Dobbins. Let me tell you where my thoughts come from. So when I look at Dobbins, I see a guy. He averaged 6 yards a carry last year. That's insane, right? 6 yards a carry. So he's trending up. Okay, but then you look at and he's also a year 2 guy. So traditionally, year 1 to year 2 guys improve. So we've got high yards per carry going into second year. All should bode well, right? Well, then you think about. I have this theory that I talk about, and it's not much of a theory. It's pretty logical, but I believe that good coaches, and most coaches in the NFL are good coaches. Good coaches scheme for the talents of their players, right? And I think when they went and got Sammy Watkins, Rashad Bateman, and Tylan Wallace, they're making a statement that says, hey, we're going to throw the ball more this year. And so then I'm looking at Dobbins. I'm like, okay, well, if they're throwing the ball more this year, I got to drop them a little bit because they're making that clear. So, and then I think about Gus Edwards, who's going to be playing a role still, and Lamar Jackson's going to be full sharing touches, which he already did last year. So really it comes down to the fact that I think they're going to throw the ball more this year, and I don't know that they're just going to give him those touches. I think he should get the touches over Gus, but I don't know that it's going to happen that way because Gus was effective last year too. So like we have these things that push him up, and then we have those things that push him down. So that's probably the most perplexing running back situation as far as second-year backs that I'm looking at. I really don't know what to expect out of him. So it's interesting that you brought him up.
Well, I'll be honest with you. Like I could have probably said all 4 of those guys because you do make some like there are some concerns. But from what I think is Dobbins really didn't get a lot of play early in the season, right? Like he kind of got thrown in a little bit later in the season. So like, I mean, there's going to be a bunch more opportunity for him. I mean, I know Ingram didn't get a ton of touches last year, but I don't foresee Gus getting a lot more touches. His role's his role. Pretty much all the passes to the running backs are going to Dobbins. You know, I mean, his hands were a little suspect last year. That was my biggest concern with him. I saw a lot of drops from him. Could be a rookie just having the oopsies a little bit. I don't know. But I feel like the opportunity is greatest for him. Yes, his efficiency is going to drop. You know, he's not going to be 6.0 likely. But like all of the players, I mean, the expectations for JT are so high, right? Like the expectations for Swift is probably higher than, and I think that then I expect, you know, just based on his touches. Akers is out. So, I mean, I think that he has the best chance to exceed expectations. Could I have even gotten a little saucier and said all of them? You know, none of them exceed expectations? I mean, maybe. I mean, Gibson's probably the guy I'm most high on. So, I mean, that's probably not a bad idea, but I've already said my piece, I guess, so I'll stick with Dobbins. But, yeah, I mean, you're right. There are concerns for him also. So, I mean, that's actually interesting that, like, you know, people need to think about that, because sometimes people get so excited just because it's it was a hot rookie that they're automatically going to do better the second year, and maybe they'll probably do better, but I don't think they're going to meet like what everybody thinks they're going to be. And you just got to be careful with that kind of stuff, that there's going to be this natural progression from being a quality, efficient player one year that they're automatically going to be like a stud the following year.
Right.
All right, Jake, do you have a take that you want to be associated with?
Yeah, there's two. And the first one, if I haven't made it clear, I'll make it clear now. Trey Sermon will outscore Raheem Mostert. I got no doubt about that one. And then I'll also, the problem is when I think of these, I usually tweet them. So all the people who follow me, I've seen probably this one already. But Chase Claypool, I have him higher than Deontay Johnson this year, which is apparently controversial. But it goes back to what we were just discussing, where you have a player who's heading into year two, and typically players improve, right? So if you've got a guy who I think he finished in PPR wide receiver like 23, 22, somewhere right in there, as a rookie, right? As a rookie who doesn't fully understand the game, who's not going to lose any opportunities. I think Ben was injured last year, so he should probably get more possible deep balls this year. But with that said, we got a guy who's stepping into year two, and traditionally, if you look at that data, year one to year two guys improve. So it's so interesting to me that he finished, it was either wide receiver 23, 25, somewhere in that range, but he's being drafted at like 26. That's so absurd to me that you're downgrading a guy going into the second year with the exact same parameters. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm going Chase Claypool improves. He's definitely gonna outscore his ADP. I hate the argument so much that's like, well, he's gonna have all these touchdown regressions. Well, if the guy scores touchdowns and that's what he does, then that's what he does. You can't discount and just say, well, now he's not gonna score because he scored a lot last year. That's so silly to me.
Yeah, like what's his mean, right? Like what's his mean for touchdowns? I mean, there's particular players that just score touchdowns, and actually he's my most added player this offseason. So I agree.
All right, we're gonna have to kick Jake off the show because this is a pro Deontay Johnson podcast. But no, you make a lot of good points though, Jake, because we also saw them script some of those touchdown plays for Chase Claypool. I mean, I live right outside of Philadelphia, so I remember that Steelers-Eagles games where he's doing end around for touchdowns. It's not just like, hey, go deep and we're going to hit you and there's a touchdown. I mean, they had end around, sweeps. They were doing other things with him besides just like, hey, take this 9 route and beat your guy and let's go. Like it wasn't just that. And I think you make a good point because we had this same argument about Calvin Ridley after his rookie season. He had double-digit touchdowns, and we were like, well, he can't do that again. Like, nobody just comes into the league, has 10 touchdowns, like, and then do it again. And then Calvin Ridley's like, but this is what I do. Just like we slam Julio, his ex-teammate, because that dude never scored touchdowns.
Right.
So there are just some guys that, the old cliche, have a nose for the end zone. And there's other guys who just don't. I mean, for whatever reason, it's not that one guy is good and one guy isn't. It's just either the team scripts it that way or the guy just, he puts a little extra oomph in his step when he's at that 5-yard line, whatever the case may be, So I like that. And I think the Steelers wide receiver room is one of the hardest to predict because, like, Juju could be the number one guy. I mean, and people are clowning on Juju right now. They've put him out the pasture, and he's like 23 years old, But Chase Claypool can do it. Deontay Johnson can do it. Like it's just so. Here's mine, and this doesn't sound as hot as it did a couple of months ago when I was saying it, but I've been saying it, so I'm going to continue to say it. Jalen Hurts.
Oh,
that dude, he ain't going to be a quarterback one. He's not going to do it for you. Honestly.
Went the other direction, huh?
Honestly.
I thought he was going the other direction.
No. Honestly, be happy if that dude is a top 15 quarterback for you. And let me put a little bit of stuff out here. I'm not as good with the numbers as Jake is, but I do a little bit. And I wish I could quote the person who put the tweet out because it was a great tweet. In the 4 games that Jalen Hurts played, he averaged 50, what I call touches a game, passes and rush attempts. Now, we all said at the beginning of the season when Dak was blowing it up, he was like on pace for like 7,000 yards, and that's just not sustainable, which is absolutely right, by the way. Like, there's no freaking way if he would have played 16 games that he would have been remotely close to the yardage that he was on pace for. But the reason why we say that is because we said, well, he can't throw it 40. I think he was averaging 44 pass attempts a game or something like that. But we expect throughout the course of a season for Jalen Hurts to average 38 passing attempts and 12 rushing attempts. That's a lot, and that's a recipe to get a guy hurt. On top of that, and I know everyone is going to give me the Josh Allen argument, his completion percentage last year, not good. And he was never – I mean, I think at Alabama he was an pretty accurate quarterback. But, I don't expect him to go – I think he was 56% completion last year. I mean, is he going to jump up to 66%? I mean, that's a pretty big leap. And Devonta Smith is already with a sprained MCL. And, what do we got? J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, maybe Jalen Reagor is a thing. I didn't like him pre-draft process, so I don't think he is going to be a thing. But, who are the pass catch? Apparently, Zach Ertz is, according to camp reports, is the, kind of the pass catching option right now. And, according to the Eagles, he's supposed to be getting traded in 15 minutes, even though that 15 minutes has lasted 4.5 months. So, I don't know. I don't like the weapons around him. I don't think the guy is going to be doing as much in the air or on the ground as he did last year. And I think he is going to disappoint some people. So, listen, I know it's not popular, but I'm not here to be popular. I'm here to give you my opinion the way I see it. Maybe give you some stats to prove my point. Or maybe those stats say, hey, why wouldn't they let him throw it 38 times and run it 12 times? Because obviously the biggest aspect of his game is that he can run the ball. He's the Konami code, as we hear from everybody. Right. He can run well. And I can't dispute that because he is a very good runner of the ball. But passing, man, I think that's where a lot of people are going to be hurt with their Jalen Hurts shares. Plus, in Dynasty, I don't even know if he is the starting quarterback in 2022. So.
Right. So in Dynasty, he scares me a little more. But I got a quick question for you. So I do this thing, and I've been doing it on Twitter for probably the past few months. I do these $5 bets where the loser donates to the charity of choice of the winner. And since you're on the air making a claim like that, I'd like to make a $5 bet for charity that Jalen Hurts does finish top 15. You win,
Jake,
I donate to your charity of choice. You lose, you donate to my charity of choice.
Jake, what do you have a specific charity that I would donate to if I lost this?
Yeah, it's probably I usually do the Women's Sports Foundation.
Listen, I love it. I'm a big supporter of the Shriners Children's Hospital. So let's do this, man. $5.
Right,
if Jalen Hurts does not finish top 15, $10 goes or $5 goes over to and I'll even match it. Even if I win, I'll match whatever you donate to the Shriners Children's Hospital.
I like that. Here we go. Getting some.
And if you're right, Women's Sports Foundation, some charity is going to get a little bit of extra money, and that's honestly that's what it's all about. Jake, I love it. So on that note, on a good note, on a high note, we're out of here. Jake, thank you for coming on. Please tell everybody where they can find you, what you're up to, and what you're doing.
Awesome. Yeah. So first off, thanks for having me, gentlemen. I love doing this. It's an absolute blast. Anytime I can talk football with some other nerds, I'm all about it. So thanks for having me. You can find me at Dynasty_Jake. I am currently a writer at Ball Blast and Yards Per, so check out my articles over there. Also planning on dropping a podcast soon. This is the first time I've officially announced that. But once we get some finishing touches put on that, I'll announce it, and we're ready to hit the ground running for the season. So again, thanks for having me, guys. I had a great time.
Well, Jake, no matter how this bet goes, I'm going to let you know right now. I'm probably going to be one of your first subscribers. So I can't wait until you announce that and drop that, because I'm excited about that. And we cut it up in the F4 chat that we're in. So I'll see you there too, dropping knowledge bombs. And on that note, thank you to everybody in the chat, man. Koenig was in there. The Hot Sauce Podcast was in there. A bunch of people were in and out. Fantasy Futurist Podcast. Thank you guys. When the chat is bumping, it makes the show so much better. If you like what you saw, hit the bell, hit subscribe. We appreciate it. And not only do you get us, you get the junkies, and you get Trade Addicts Pod when they do their live stuff, which is awesome. If you're listening to us on podcast, thank you again. An hour and 20 minutes. You can do anything else. You're listening to us. Remember, if for some reason you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe, leave a rate and review. Tell us what you think. And on that note, Bill, we are out of here.
Late.